just so
What's going on, everybody out there? It's Ron Brown, LMT, the People's Fitness Professional. Before we go into this discussion, I know you brothers and sisters out there have been waiting for this discussion. Before we do that, let's hit the commercial and go straight to it.
Peace family, welcome to NYP Talk Show. This is more than a podcast. It's a conscious platform rooted in truth and culture. From the 5% Nation, Nation of Islam, Moorish movement, and Masonry. Our mission is to reclaim our narrative and uplift the African diaspora with real stories and real conversations. Support us through super chats during live shows, donations on Cash App, GoFundMe, Patreon, or Buzzsprout, and by repping our official merch, available on our website and right here on YouTube's merch shelf. Every dollar, every super chat, every hoodie builds the movement. This is NYP Talk Show.
All right, we're back. Thank you, brothers, for coming out this evening and agreeing to this subject. This has been on the table for a little while. Well, for a long time, actually. This is a question that comes up a lot when I'm online talking to people in chats or what have you. People say that the Nation of Islam, they don't know a lot about nationality and birthright. And the Moors, Moorish Science, the prophet taught nationality and birthright. So I want to talk about nationality and birthright today, and we could all learn from each other and have a beautiful dialogue. And maybe we have some misconceptions about the Nation of Islam on birthright and nationality and birthright. You know what I'm saying? So let's see what happens. Peace to everybody in the chat. I really appreciate you coming out this evening. So let's just open up the floor. I want to open up the floor with Brother Cosmo L in regards to the nationality and birthright. Because according to the prophet, that's the order of the day, right? So let's talk about nationality and birthright, starting with Cosmo L. And let's take it away on that.
all right, Islam.
Islam.
7, giving perfect praise to Allah, honors to his prophet, Prophet Noble Ali. I give honor to my illustrious and industrious forefathers, the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey and Prophet Noble Ali. And I greet you all in the humble words of peace, Islam. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
So, it's a vast subject. I could, start pretty much anywhere. But in relationship to nationality and birthright, this is one of the aspects of what Noble Ali brought with the Moorish Science Temple of America when he founded it. The Moorish Science Temple of America focuses on divine creed and nationality. So it's a two-part demonstration, yet they're inextricably connected to one another. In relationship to nationality, it is well known that the Moorish Science Temple of America under Prophet Noble Ali has taught our people that they need to proclaim their free and national name to be recognized by the government in which they live and to all nations of the earth. And that he taught that names such as Negro, Black, Colored, Ethiopian, Afro, Afram, Sambo, Quadroon, Octoquadroon, all of these terms were chattel terms, meaning that they were terms that we were branded with when we arrived here in North America, those of us that did and those that were already here. And so he taught us that our nationality was Moorish American, meaning descendants of ancient Moroccans, descendants of the ancient Moroccan Empire, and born here in America, and that this was a necessary proclamation and a necessary action that the so-called Black people here in North America, even though I'm in Hawaii right now, but in North America, needed to take in order to attain the highest in life and to attain respect around the world and in the government of the USA, and that we would not be respected as those who had risen from the depths of chattel slavery until we return the branded terms. And I can get into later why he chose Moorish American and what the ancient Moroccan Empire or Moorish Empire is. But this is the foundation of the teachings. On the nationality side, the divine creed side was that Moors were Muslim, we were Mohammedans, and that he brought us the religion of Islamism, which was the Mohammedan faith exercised here by Moorish Americans in a way in which was suitable to our environment and for our political, social, and economic needs. And I'll yield with that.
All right. That's peace. That's peace. So now, as far as, so you broke it in two parts. So you spoke about divine creed, right? And as far as nationality, you're speaking specifically of labels, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm speaking, the labels need to be returned, and we need to acknowledge ourselves and our nation through our bloodline, which is a divine bloodline, but it's a bloodline, it's a pedigree, it's not the faith aspect of it. The faith aspect of it, we are all brothers in faith, and we are a Islamic nation, or a nation under Islam, or nation of Islam in that sense. However, our nationality and our pedigree is something that puts us on an equal footing with everyone around the world who has a nationality and a pedigree. And we are taught in the Holy Quran of Mecca that Allah created us in tribes and nations, that we may know one another and not despise one another. And so again, nationality and our nation is inextricably connected to our faith, yet they are two different modalities.
Okay. All right. So now to take it to Minister Kevin Ali, as far as nationality and birthright, I don't know if you want to piggyback off what the brother said, or if you want to give your explanation of how you see nationality and birthright.
Yes, sir, brothers. First, let me just begin in the name of Allah, who came in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, thanking him for his coming and thanking him for raising our last and surely our greatest messenger, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Before we get started, brother, how do you like the lighting? I did a little better on the lighting this time.
Yeah, it's better this time.
All praises are due to Allah. And second of all, to actually begin, I'm a little surprised that, what did you say in your opening, Brother Ron, that people didn't really think the Nation of Islam focused on nationality at all?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Is that what you said?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That is shocking to me. I'm absolutely shocked that people don't think the Nation of Islam focuses on nationality. First, let's take a very elementary look at it. Let's look at the name of and I'm saying group or organization for lack of a better term, Nation of Islam. The discussion should be over at that point right there. Right in the name, it tells you that we are, in fact, a nation. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that upon the coming of God, he declared that we were the lost, found nation of Islam. So I'm gonna take a little segue into secular dynamics, just to give us some basis. When we're talking about a nation, and particularly nations that are based on law, divine law, religious law, if you will, there's actually, even the Caucasian recognizes that there's actually 4 levels of this law that defines us as a people or as a nation. There's eternal law, that's God's divine law. There's also the divine law, that God's direct revelation to humanity. So in other words, eternal law is the nature of a person. There are just certain things that a person is by nature, that no writing, no saying can change that. But to give further clarification, God sends scriptures and messengers to further elucidate that divine law. That's the divine law. The 4th level of that Bear with me. I just took a couple of notes before we came on. The third level of that is natural law. This is humans' rational understanding and participation in eternal law. See, that's where we come in. And the fourth is human positive law. These are specific laws made by human governments, statutes, regulations, etc., that are codified and written down by people that are divinely inspired, or in the case of the quote unquote democracies, governmentally inspired by the vote of the people. In our case, with the Nation of Islam and the Moorish Science Temple of America, those human laws were given to us by the Holy Prophet, Noble Jural, and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and the divine scriptures of the previous prophets and messengers that were laid down before us, which we all adhere to. So now, what constitutes a nation? I'm going to give you real quickly, because the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that we are not some little group. We are not just some little religion in the Nation of Islam. We are, in fact, a nation. I'm reading to you now from the book, The True History of Elijah Muhammad. It was published from writings and speeches that he made. He states in here, we brought the white man out of the caves and hillsides of Europe and civilized them. We are the ones who did that. We, the Nation of Islam, have produced all of his guidance. Wait a minute. The white man didn't come out of the cage until 6,000 years ago. How did the Nation of Islam produce his guidance? Since the Nation of Islam, in most people's minds, was founded in 1930 or 1931 or so by Wallace Farad Muhammad W.D. Farad. It's because the nation has no birth record. It has no beginning nor ending. We were declared a nation by Almighty God himself. Okay, well, what's the name of your nation? Islam. Who are citizens of the Nation of Islam? Muslims. Who civilized the Caucasian when he was in the caves 6,000 years ago, 4,000 years ago? We did. The Nation of Islam. We are, in fact, a nation. Well, what are the boundaries of our nation? See, the current maps that we see, and if I'm going long, just give me a heads up or something so I can let the brother chime back in. But the current boundaries on the map that are drawn on the map, those are recent boundaries drawn once the Caucasians left the caves and hillsides of Europe. They drew those boundaries. What's the boundaries of our nation? 196,940,000 square miles. Every square inch of it is the Nation of Islam. And what we called that boundary originally, according to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, because I have no thoughts on this. What we originally called that boundary was Asia. The whole planet was called Asia, not a continent. The entire planet was called Asia. So our nationality, who we are as a people, as a country, as a nation, stretches all the way back to the beginning and the creation of this planet, which we, the original black man, created. So that divine law, that number one in that secular definition of law, that is us initiating that divine law. That trumps anything else, whether it's codified in physical law by governments today, or whether it's codified even in scriptures that have been revealed since that time, if that makes any sense. And I'll yield so my brother can build some more on that.
All right. Brother Cosmo, do you have anything to say behind that?
Yes, indeed. I just want to make sure, as you see me looking to the right, I am taking notes so that I don't, I can be precise in the communication and points that I want to hit. I would like first to say thank you, brother, for your draw. However, what I would add, since we were going to secular law, and
not secular law, I was just giving to just secular definitions, nothing.
No, I understand.
We're not bound by that.
No, of course, we're not bound by it. But since we dealt with that, and I'm familiar with the definitions of what you spoke of in relationship to, if you look up in Black's Law Dictionary, second edition, look up divine law, and it's going to express the very same concepts. And I often teach on these concepts. Divine law, or as you say, eternal law, is broken into three categories, as you said. It's natural law, right? Which is laws observable by nature and intrinsic to us all by virtue of being born, like inalienable rights, so to speak, which the Constitution speaks to. And then there is revealed law, which is the scriptural law. Doesn't matter what scripture it is, it's scriptural law, it's revealed law to those people. And thirdly is the positive law. And the positive law, like you said, is the edicts that come forth from the prophets, or in our case, grand sheiks or ministers practicing law, as in Act 1 of our divine constitution and bylaws. Grand sheiks are empowered to make law and enforce law, ... So this is actually true, but this is not the definition of a nation. This is the definition of divine law. Now, nations can be created around divine law, and this is true. And this is exactly what the prophet Noble Juali did. In Acts 6, the prophet says, this is a new era of time now, and all men must proclaim their free and national name to be recognized by the government in which they live and to all nations of the earth. Now, the Moorish Science Temple of America was founded in 1913 AD. But in 1912, something very significant took place, which was the forming of the League of Nations. And so when the prophet says this is a new era of time now, this is due to the organizing of nations under a specific type of structure, religious or otherwise. And when you look at the League of Nations, so we say, well, that's the League of Nations. That's the so-called white men. You know, the United Nations come out of that. It's more Asiatics on that than the so-called European, though we know he's bullying everybody, right? But it's more Asiatics there. And this tradition extends back to, I believe it's, and that's one of the things, let me make reference here for the people watching, is Genesis, which the messenger taught out of, the Bible, Genesis chapter 10. And it deals with the tables of nations. And the table of nations, even though these people were Muslim, because there's only one God, there's only one faith, whatever you want to call it. We recognize Allah by different names, but if you're talking about the creator, there's only one creator. And so all of these nations had their faith. And in the case of the Bible, they were descendants from Ham and Shem and all of these people who are made reference to by the minister and by Prophet Noble Juali. And yet they had a table of nations. So in the Holy Quran of Mecca, it tells us we are one ummah. Islam, as Muslims, we are one ummah. We are one body politic as a group of Muslims. However, we still have family that may not be a part of our religious body politic or our religious nation or our nation based on religious principles. And these people that are not our family, that are our family, but may not be Muslim or may not be Buddhist or may not be Christian, depending on wherever their persuasion is, still hold the same nationality of us, because nationality stems from your bloodline and your pedigree and from the land that you inhabit. So take it back to Black's Law Dictionary. The definition of nation is, number one, a people. And this, I believe, is what you're referring to when you say a nation is a people. We are a people. This is true. However, an organized nation. It's the second definition that comes after the nation in Black's Law Dictionary, second edition. Under the definition of nation, it says a people or an aggregate of men organized under a jural society founded upon law. Now, that jural society can be either based on divine law, that jural society can be based on natural law, and that jural society can be based on positive law. But when we say nation as Moorish Americans, we understand we're all Moors, we're all a nation of people. Yet, what is required after that in this new era of time now, and to take our place amongst the affairs of men, is to organize ourselves under that jural society and that society founded upon law to represent not only our religious beliefs and faith, but also that of our bloodline, because we're taught by the Prophet Noble Jew Ali that there is an earthly salvation and there is a divine salvation. And through our bloodline, there are many things that are owed to us, such as in compensation and reparations and so on and so forth. And we come from our mother. And so nationality, if you want to look up this concept, it's known as jus sanguinis or consanguinity. And this means that nationality stems from the bloodline. And this becomes important in nations because inheritance is through the mother. Inheritance is through the bloodline. In our religious body politics, whether Hebrew, Islamic, or otherwise, inheritance is based on the bloodline. And so I think that though we can form a nation based on divine law, and whether we're all Muslims, whether we're all, or you want to use the word Muslim or Hebraic or Jewish, we still have a bloodline and a pedigree that Allah created us in that has to be, that we have a duty to organize not only those who are part of the religious body politic, but also those who are not a part of it. And they will have particular rights. If you study ancient Islam, those people who were not under the beliefs or faith-based system of the Muslims, they would still be a part of the nation, but they would pay the jizya tax and be represented in war and so on and so forth. So I think when we're talking about we're talking about the modern structure of how nations operate. And so the Moorish Science Temple of America is still under divine law. It's still a nation of Muslims. Yet we still have the political, social, and economic apparatus founded by Prophet Noble Jew Ali as a body politic, not just as a, because the body politic then becomes the state, which represents the people, which are the nation, to interact with other states in this particular structure here, especially in America. And I'll end here because of the separation of church and state. So a nation of Muslims themselves cannot interact with other states on in certain regard unless they establish a state, which is a jural entity that represents that society or nation with other states. And so I think this is important for us to understand that bloodline, nationhood, and consanguinity, and jus soli, which is birthright, born on the soil, which is national law, international law, and a part of divine law that nations use to operate today. And a good example of this is Iran. They're a nation of Muslims, but their nationality is Iranian, and their faith is Islam. They're a nation of Muslims, but they still have a nationality. You can go all around the world. You can go to Thailand. You can go to Sri Lanka. You can go to Indonesia, Malaysia, places, Nigeria, Mali, Ghana. And these are all nations of Muslims. They're all a part of the nation of Islam, yet they still have a nationality based on their pedigree and based on the soil. I yield.
Thank you, my brother. I will submit for the general consumption, and I hope and pray that I'm still dispelling the myth that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad didn't address nationhood. But I will go to, again, part of my opening, that these current lines that are drawn on maps on continents, both in America, in the Americas, in Europe, and even in Africa, these are recent creations. There was no country called Iran 6,000 years ago. There was no country called Iraq 7,000 years ago, 5,000, 4,000 years ago. These are all recent creations. I submit to you that the whole earth was once called Asia, and it was ruled by the original people. What was the religion of those original people? According to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the religion of those original people was Islam. Though that is the nation. It is and has always been Islam. Now, we identify different areas or territories. Hey, how do you get to Persia? Because that's what Iran originally was called. How do you get to Persia? How do you get to Atlanta? How do you get? So we had those distinctions for travel, but this idea of separate states or separate countries is a very recent phenomenon. When I say very recent, I'm saying within the last 6,000 years. So again, I'm going to take a sidebar into secular definition of nation. The secular definition of a nation, bear with me one second. Awkward pause here, is a country considered as a body of people united by common descent, history, culture, language, inhabiting a particular area or territory. It also says it's a body of people having a common descent, history, and also an indigenous people or confederation of indigenous people. So what's key in there? It says that common history, culture, language, and it also said inhabiting a particular area or territory. Well, right there, see, you people in North America, you can't be a nation. You have to be a members of the nation of America. That's wrong. That's why the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had at our temple meetings what's called the actual facts board. We had the flag of two nations on that actual facts board. The flag of Islam, which is the flag of the nation of the righteous, and the flag of America, which represents the stronghold of the devil, the Caucasian people. Which one will survive the War of Armageddon that's written on that flag? Those are the flags that represent two nations, and it represents the two nations that are involved in this final battle, this final war for our people called the War of Armageddon. Well, now you say, well, you Nation of Islam folks, or you Black Muslims, or you Moors, you don't have any land. So how can you be a nation? I'm glad you asked that. I'm glad you said that. Whether you're a Moor or a Nation of Islam and don't have any land currently, that does not disqualify you from being in a nation. Again, let's look at the secular description. People claiming nation status without land often fall into two categories. Stateless nations. Can you think of any stateless nations? I can. Two right off the top of the head are the Kurds and the Palestinians. They are actually stateless nations. They're not recognized by the so-called United Nations, which, yes, the brother is correct. Most of the United Nations are people of color, original people, but they've locked them out of any being able to do anything significant by the 9-nation member of the Security Council, which no major thing that the United Nations pass can go through unless the 9 members of the Inner Security Council let it go through. And that's why Africa is completely, and Asia and the Middle East are completely handcuffed by the UN, is because there's none of them that are a member of the 9-nation Security Council. What are some other ones? While stateless nations are defined by shared culture and history but lack territory, micronations are often personal projects. So let's look at some of these stateless nations. You have, in fact, the Kurds. In Kurdistan, if Kurdistan was its own country, it would extend 193,000 square miles. You also have Rohingya. This is another stateless nation, meaning they don't have a physical land territory. And it's the largest refugee camp in Bangladesh. It's home to 600,000 Rohingya Muslims. You also have the Palestinians, which I've mentioned, and we see them in the news all the time. They do have some territory, although it is occupied territory by the criminal settler colony of Israel. They are still, in fact, a stateless nation, though they do display a flag, though that flag is not recognized by any of the, and to use the brother Cosmo L's term, any of the current body politics that exist on the planet today. You've also got Roma. And these are more known as, and I don't mean to say a derogatory word, I didn't realize this was a derogatory word, but Roma are known as the Gypsies. They first migrated from northern India in the 13th and 15th century into Europe. You also got the Hmong and the Karen and other ethnic minorities, such as in Thailand. These are at least 5 stateless nations. I submit to you, but they have I submit to you that we in America are anywhere from 20 to 60 million people, a nation trapped inside of a nation. Right in Message to the Black Man, and on the back page of the Muhammad Speaks, we go into the wants and beliefs of the Muslims. What do the Muslims want? Well, one of the things that we want is we want freedom for all beliefs. We want our people in America whose parents or grandparents were descendants from slaves to be allowed to establish a separate state or territory of their own. Now, if that's not dealing with nationality, I don't know what is. That's why it baffles my mind that anybody would say that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad didn't deal with statehood or nationhood. And then, not only that, he gives us a flag to represent that nationhood. So I'm just really surprised that people actually say that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad did not deal with nationhood. And I'm not saying any of this to disagree with what my brother Cosmo was saying. I'm learning from him. I hope he's learning from me. I hope we are coming to a mutual understanding. What we're doing is good. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad had a great respect for the work of Prophet Noble Drew Ali. And as I shared in the previous interview with Brother Ron, the early foundation of the Nation of Islam, a lot of the early foundation followers were former followers of Prophet Noble Drew Ali, who came over and bore witness to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and became registered members of the Nation of Islam, which has no birth record, by the way. And he allowed them to continue to wear their fez. That's why you see the fez on a lot of those brothers. Those were brothers who came over from the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. And sometimes the messenger would don that fez because that's our original fez too. What the brother's wearing right now, that's our fez. It belongs to all of us by nature. So we ask the Caucasian, who was given a set time to rule, he was allowed to draw all these lines on the map, do his thing, and he done messed up everything. And at the end, he said God was going to come and give it back to the original owners. So before God comes and makes him give it back, we give him a program and say, look, politely, give us a separate state or territory of our own that we can dwell in so that we are no longer a stateless nation. It must be fertile and minerally rich with access to a waterway that has access to the ocean so that we can engage in international trade and commerce with other nations of the earth. Well, what if we not gonna do it? Then my God will kill you. Just like he killed Pharaoh for enslaving the children of Israel and taking away their nation. Just like he killed Nebuchadnezzar for taking away the names and language of those people. And I will submit and learn some more from our brother.
Islam, peace. Infinite gratitude. I myself, I agree with you that what Elijah Muhammad established in bringing a flag and bringing laws and things of that nature, it doesn't inhibit the ability of the NOI to organize and to be a nation of people. I think so. So that goes under what we were talking about, divine law, because your nation can be based on natural law, as in the Constitution of the United States of America, which recognizes inalienable rights. It can be based on divine law, which is revealed scripture and prophethood, like as in the case of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. You can establish a nation around that. And positive law, edicts and rulings. So I'm not one of those that doesn't understand that one can establish a ecclesiastical government, not unlike the Vatican, or like ecclesiastical government, not unlike the Moorish Science Temple of America. I think when we talk, the teachings of Prophet Noble Jew Ali specifically addresses nationality of those people known as Negroes, blacks, and coloreds, and that there were a nation of people prior to that, and they had a national name, and that national name was taken from them, and that national name was Moor. That national name was related to Morocco, and you can look back in history, and all these things can be verified. None of this is theology. But ones definitely have a right to organize around divine law or divine concepts, and this is totally legitimate. In fact, the Prophet Noble Jew Ali is the first to establish the body politic, even before the Vatican. But the crucial elements involved in this were related to establishing government that not only dealt with the divine side of things, because on the societal side of the Moorish Science Temple of America is pretty much the same, deals in divine law. That's why we have a divine constitution and bylaws, not just a constitution. But in order to interact with other nations and with other states, the body politic was necessary to be established in order to carry out governmental functions. So say, for example, creating birth records, creating instruments that one needs to identify what nation they belong to, right? And so as you create the birth records and other documentation, school records, school IDs, records, all of these things, which Elijah Muhammad was exceptional at. And if you see, the Moorish Americans have nationality card. The early Nation of Islam had nationality card, identity and identification. But what the Prophet is teaching is that the total salvation, the earthly salvation of so-called Negroes, blacks, and colors is to give back the chattel term. And I think where the Moors and the Nation of Islam differ is the fact, so say, for example, even though the Nation of Islam is Nation of Islam, if I were to ask you just a simple question, what is your nationality? What would be your answer?
Islam.
Islam. So then who is the Asiatic black man? Who are the black people? When we say, when ones in the nation say, I'm black, right? As in referring to identity, right? We say if your nationality is Islam, then that causes confusion, not amongst the Nation of Islam, but amongst those outside of it, because Islam is an actual thing. And I'm not talking about the Arabian, the way it came to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, in Arabia, because we know Islam goes all the way back. We know that. We know Islam began when Allah said be, and it is. The first thing that came into existence was a Muslim. The sun is a Muslim. The moon is a Muslim. The wind is Muslim. The ocean is Muslim, because the definition of a Muslim is one who submits to Islam. And Islam is peaceful submission to the will of Allah. And so all of these things in creation that submit are all Muslim. They're all under Islam. But yet we do have a pedigree. And the pedigree is the part. The nationality is the pedigree. So when one refer to themselves as Black, or back in the day, Negro or colored, this is what the prophet is speaking to in relationship of nationality, not that to take away from the Nation of Islam and its autonomous right to even call themselves Islam. But historically, I haven't seen it. And many of the elders, when I was a young Muslim, and I was young, but I still had rank. So when I came through with soldiers, and we would often do co-security with the Nation of Islam under the Minister Louis Farrakhan. In
well, there you go, right there.
Hold on, Islam, hold on. When we, I mean, aside of differences, there's going to be differences in that. But what I'm saying is, I've dealt with Silas Muhammad, John Muhammad. I'm just speaking on the Minister Louis Farrakhan at this point, and the Muslims. When we interact and we talk about concepts of nationality, and throughout my studies of the teachings of Elijah Muhammad, I've never seen him refer to any of the adherents and their nationality as being Islam. Now, the Nation of Islam is the Nation of Islam, and if you are a part of Islam, then you are a Muslim. So,
brother, you just said it right there. He called us the Nation of Islam.
Islam.
Nation of Islam.
Islam.
What's your nation? What's your nationality? Islam.
Yes.
However,
Islam, a nation of Islam, but those who practice Islam are Muslim. So
correct.
that's the definition, is what I'm saying.
Correct.
So that would make Muslim the nationality, not Islam, because those who are adherents of Islam are identified as Muslim. They're not identified as Islam. They're identified as those who practice Islam and are a part of the Nation of Islam, but they're Muslim. So this is a religious concept, and it's totally fine, and there's nothing wrong with that.
What's a religious concept?
What I'm saying is, on the divine side, let me say divine concept as opposed to religious concept. But when it comes to the earthly concept of nationality, which has been the tradition throughout all of the faiths. Remember, Allah says in the Holy Quran of Mecca, and I can give you the exact verse if you want, that Allah created us in tribes, plural, and nations.
Yes, I'm familiar with that.
Not one nation, but nations. And so these are the nations that I'm referring to. And these are the nations you mentioned earlier about Iran being Persia, and that's what it was originally called. However, they weren't Muslim in Persia. They were Zoroastrian. I mentioned Iran because
can I ask something real quick?
Hold on one second. Let me finish this concept.
Okay.
It's going to take 1 minute.
Okay.
The Iran is the Islamic Republic of Iran, and that is a Muslim nation, whereas Persia was a Zoroastrian nation. So yes, it's a new name and concept. However, it's honoring Islam as its national creed, while understanding that you still have a geographical borders and nationality in this time. So it doesn't take away from them being the Islamic Republic of Iran, but they still have a consanguinity, and they still have a nationality, and they still have a birthright, even though they're all Muslims. They're operating the nation of Iran. And so this is what I'm referring to as Muslims. We can still operate nations in this modern time without it taking away from our identity of being Muslims. And this is the concept of nationality, of giving back the chattel terms of Black, Negro, colored, and things that Moorish Americans are teaching. It's not in opposition to anyone having a nation of Muslims or a nation of Islam. So be it, because that is the right of any group of people under divine law. Peace. You got a question?
Well, two questions. Are you familiar with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's statement saying that Islam is not a religion?
Islam. And that's why I changed it to divine. Islam is a way of life. This we know. It is a way, which again leads back into nationality. If Islam is a way of life, then it being a nationality is not a way of life. A nationality is the identification of the nation that you belong to.
This is an identification, and I submit to you that the Nation of Islam is a direct identification of the nation that we belong to.
I'm just going based on your definition. You said that the definition of Islam, according to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, is a way of life. So
no, I didn't say that was the definition of Islam. I said Islam is not a religion.
And I
didn't say it.
All right, yeah, I said it, and I thought you agreed with me when I said it. It looked like you were in agreement that yes, it was a way of life. The way you nodded your head, but
Islam is a way of life. It's not. Right. Well, it's not a set of rituals and prayers, and Islam is a complete way of life. We call it a religion because most people don't understand that. Islam covers education, commerce, government. Everything you can think of, Islam covers it. Not just prayers and the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Allahu Akbar, and say Islam covers everything. Education, grooming standards. Islam covers everything. I'm just very surprised that you've never heard the messenger address our nationality.
No, I have. I agree with you. Islam, it does cover everything. But nationality only covers one thing, and that's what we're talking about. We're talking about pinpointing nationality as what nationality is, because nationality is not education. You can educate on nationality.
No, education is not nationality.
Yeah, nationality is not government. Nationality is not politics, though it is related to these things. Nationality is not religion. Nationality stems from your bloodline of who your mother was, who her mother was, who her mother was, who
I see the disconnect now. I see the misunderstanding.
Yes. So
your definition of nationality goes through the bloodline. Got it. I understand that.
It's not my definition of nationality. It's the definition of nationality. It's called consanguinity.
No, I understand. The definition of nationality that you're using descends through bloodline.
Do you have another one?
No, I'm going to give you, I'm going to blow your mind a different way.
All right.
I'm going to submit to you, that though we know what our bloodline is in general, the lost found members of that Nation of Islam who were cut off from that bloodline don't know the specifics of our bloodlines.
I do, and I can prove it to you if you give me the time.
Those who were brought in slavery, I submit to you that those who were brought in slavery were cut off from that bloodline.
Well.
Now, I don't know your lineage, I don't know your family's history, but the families that were brought here in slavery, specifically by Sir John Hawkins in 1555 on the good ship Jesus, they were cut off from their bloodline. They had no idea who their parents and grandparents were.
They were.
I'm not talking about you specifically.
No, I'm glad you mentioned Sir John Hawkins and the good ship Jesus, because through history and through language, we're able to trace our bloodline. Now, the thing about Sir John Hawkins and the good ship Jesus was he was awarded a banner for all of the, I don't know, I can't remember if it was Queen Elizabeth or whoever it was. I think it was Queen Elizabeth.
He addressed the royal families of Europe, Queen Elizabeth.
Yeah, and he was given a banner in honor of all of the slaves that he captured. And on that banner was a demi-Moor. which means a small Moor representing all of the people that he was capturing. And you could look this up. Just look up the demi-Moor given to Sir John Hawkins. So that's first. That's number one. Number two, the word Negro comes from the Spanish. And the Spanish, the lineage of this word Negro
that's why he said so-called American Negro.
So, but
I have no allegiance to that. Muhammad had no allegiance to that word
understood.
Negro.
But we can agree that when he said Negro, he was talking about the descendants that we're referring to. Right?
Well, he said so-called American Negro,
the so-called Negro.
because we're talking. We have to address people who are not familiar with that history.
And
we have to use terminology they understand.
He said so-called black in the early days as well. But what I'm saying is I'm identifying the population of people known as Negroes. There's no debate who those people are. The so-called Negro, there's no debate. So once we realize, well, because there was no Negro up until a certain point that wasn't referred to, the Negro did not exist. When
that's the basis of the teaching.
When the Moors fell in Spain in 1492, those who could not ransom themselves and go back to Africa began to be forced into the religion of Christianity and began to be known as Moriscos. And these Moriscos would practice their faith in secret, but they were still Muslim, but they had moved from Moor to Morisco. The later term, after they were fully Christianized, they were labeled Negro. And this is where the Negro began, with these Moorish people. And these same Moorish people that Captain Sir John Hawkins was given a banner of a demi-Moor in chains. And at the bottom, it says demi-Moor. So demi meaning small, Moor, we already know what that is. And the same people that were known as Moors, that the banner was given to Sir John Hawkins, the same people that were Moors that later became Moriscos, that later became Negro, is the population known as Negro today. So if we trace it back linguistically, we can see where this word Negro came from and what actual people it referred to. And this is part of the teachings of what the prophet brought us. He didn't just whip it up in the closet and say, hey, let's call ourselves Moors. He gave us the historical data and the historical facts to trace our lineage, not only back to that time, but all the way back to the first inhabitants of Africa, with Ham and Cush and the Moabites who inhabited the Holy Lands and migrated into Northwest Africa, which just so happened to be known as the Slave Coast. Now,
who are Ham and Cush?
No. What do you mean?
Who are Ham and Cush?
The first inhabitants of Africa. Cush was the first inhabitant. His father Ham. I'm speaking of in the lineage of the Table of Nations of the Bible at this point. Obviously, we know our record goes back further than then, but we're talking about.
I was getting ready to say
because we're tracing our bloodline back to something, right? We're not just tracing it back to something abstract. We're tracing it back to something that we can vet, that we can actually go and show in records. Now, there's various historical names for Ham and Cush. We could get into that, whether you want to be Nubian, whether you want to say Camite, whatever word you want to use. The prophet brought us the knowledge of ourselves right down to the name and national name and our divine creed. And the Moors who were not brought over here had already come over to North America previously in ancient migrations. They were Moors, known as Moors at that time. And so when we're dealing with nationality and bloodline, we're just dealing with the definition of it as it relates to this new time of era that we are in right now, where the so-called black man, the so-called Negro, must give back the chattel terms and return to the name of his forefathers of all other nations. Now, that doesn't mean that a Moor can't be a part of the Nation of Islam. That doesn't mean that someone in the Nation of Islam can't recognize their nationality as Moorish, and it doesn't mean that it takes away from any of the teachings of Elijah Muhammad. A Moor could join right now. Someone from the Nation of Islam can come join or proclaim their nationality with the Moors. They would have to give back the chattel term, but everything else would be the same. And I don't think the chattel term is an integral part of the teachings, because even in
What
the
it-
early
you
teachings,
lost me. What do you mean they would
the
have to
chattel
give
turned
back
black.
chattel?
Even in the early teachings, the prophet the messenger Noble Drew Ali used to say the so-called black man, and then later on it became the so-called got dropped off. It was the Asiatic black man, which brought it back to Asia, which is something that come over from the Moorish Science Temple of America.
Well, let me ask you this: where can we find these writings and what the prophet wrote and taught for us? Where are these writings contained where somebody can go and check it for themselves?
Prophet Noble Drew Ali?
Yes.
Oh, well, there's a book known as the Moorish Literature. And if you type in Moorish Literature, you're going to find it. And if you, the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America, not to be confused with the Holy Quran of Mecca, which we have.
I have that one.
Yeah, I just want to make sure the listeners know we have the Holy Quran of Mecca as our revealed word of God. The Holy Quran means that which is to be read. And so the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America is something that Moorish Americans need because everyone else already got a nationality. So if you read in the back chapters, you'll get some of the ancient history. If you read the Moorish literature, you'll get the political, social, and economic history. And then these articles were taken from the Moorish Guide, which was the Prophet's newspaper. And there's a host of other writings as well, sayings of the Prophet, so on and so forth. The best thing to do is just either go online or connect with the temple or connect, with me, myself. We can build all day long, brother, off this chat and share knowledge. And if there's anything that I've said that you want reference to, if you just want to look deeper into teachings, and it's not about being combative, as I was saying on the text earlier. It's about sharing and comparing. And coming from California, I know a lot of brothers and sisters, like you said, who rock with the nation. Yusuf Bey, who had a Bey on his name in Oakland, one of the famous Moors in Oakland.
Many of the messengers, ministers, and followers had Bey as a name.
Exactly.
Bia is the correct name. He pronounced it according to the messenger. You've gone for quite a while, brother. Is it okay if I get a little?
Sure.
Back to this about the messenger not addressing nation. In the book, and I had my wife help me research this, and the messenger Elijah Muhammad is literally the most documented, quote unquote, religious leader in history. I just have some of his books right here that are directly from his mouth and pen. Some published directly by him, some transcribed and compiled by others, but verified from him. And these are just about a third of the books that I have. In the book, The Flag of Islam, and I had my wife just go do a cursory search for nation, nationality. It says in the book, The Flag of Islam, or actually, this is in the one of the early books, The Supreme Wisdom. The nation of Islam will live forever. There is no end to the black nation, Islam. And by black, we're not talking about the color in a crayon box. Whatever that color is that you call out there in outer space where there's no sunlight and no starlight, that's what the definition of black is in Supreme Wisdom. That is the essence out of which our God, Allah, emerged from. For lack of a more appropriate scientific name that we can understand, we call it black, but it has nothing to do with a color. It is the absence of light that our God fought out of. So there is no end to the black nation, Islam. That nation is to live forever. But the so-called Negroes, again, so-called because we're talking to 1930 people. They don't know all these terms. They don't know it. And their slave masters know that they don't know it and therefore have them deceived 100%. Again, in the Flag of Islam, the black man of America is prophesied in a symbolic way throughout the Bible and the Quran as the choice of God to produce a nation of gods. I don't understand this thought process that people say the messenger didn't talk about nation and nationality. In the root word of nationality is nation. So if the messenger is talking about nation, he in fact is talking about nationality. Again, from the Flag of Islam, He, Master Farad Muhammad, has the power over the heavens and the earth. And he called us a nation for the first time. This coincides with the Bible, which refers to him as making a nation out of us after he found us. Again, you say, well, what is the nationality? I keep saying it's Islam. Well, it can't be Islam because Islam is a religion. Islam is codified. Islam covers everything, including a nation. The government that we have is Islam. Well, who are the officers of that government? Well, the foremost officer of that government is the messenger of Allah, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I would ask, and this is a rhetorical question. I don't want to answer right now, but what nation was Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, 1,400 years ago? What nation was he a member of? We are a member of the original Asiatic nation found here in the wilderness of North America. Head of the government, Messenger Elijah Muhammad. But what are some of the officers of the government here in the lost found part? Minister. Minister is the definition of minister is not just a pastor, somebody who totes a Bible and Quran and gives a sermon. A minister is an envoy, an emissary who speaks with the nations of the earth. That's many of Messenger Elijah Muhammad's ministers, in fact, did just that. Going around being received as diplomats. Messenger Elijah Muhammad was received as a diplomat. Messenger Elijah Muhammad on his speech in Washington, D.C. in, was it 59 or 56 or 60? The president sent him a motorcade that is a motorcade only sent for heads of state. The president doesn't send motorcades fit for heads of state unless a head of state is coming into his city. And that was done for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, because the Caucasian recognizes that we are some of the Caucasians will openly recognize, they know in their secrets, they will openly recognize that we are in fact a nation, but we are a stateless nation at this time. And many of them would like to make us a nation, but they're fearful of their other brothers who might kill them for doing anything good, anything for the so-called once slave, like they did Kennedy and like they did Abraham Lincoln. So, I mean, I hope I'm really touching on some of the finer points that were actually right in front of our faces, where Messenger Elijah Muhammad did in fact address our nationality, our nationhood, nation of Islam.
Islam, all I would say is I think we just need to maybe go deeper into nation, state, government, because nationality doesn't come from the government. A government is an entity used by a nation to administrate affairs. And so I'm like I said, I think it's important to look at what the messenger said. And as he said, nation is the root word in nationality. Yet there is a standard definition of what nationality is. And it doesn't just begin with the so-called white man. It's our people who established the bloodline rights. It's our people who established birthrights and tracing the bloodline. And for the purpose of inheritance and for the purpose of to endogamy, to make sure that we're not intermarrying with the proper people. If we're all the same people, then eventually you're going to get deformities, just like you see them. And you see them.
You see them in our.
There has to be diversity in nations and diversity in tribes in order to bring about something that is going to be viable, even living upon this earth. So I don't disagree with anything that you are saying, because it's divine law from you all's body, and everyone through religious tolerance is entitled to all of these things. And again, I don't think Islam is a religion. I know it as a way of life. I know it as being a perfect program of life. And I'm focusing on one thing. Everything you're saying is fine. as far as metaphysically, when it comes to the universe and all of that in relationship to black, when we use the term black or so-called black and Negro, we're only referring to a political status that was created by the so-called white man, the European, in order to disenfranchise people from the knowledge of themselves. So the black carbon atom, you know, the black matter in the outer space and our relationship to that, and all of these things are wonderful, and I'm not in opposition to them at all, and I actually go pretty deep off into them myself. But when it comes to political status, this is the only part we're talking about, political status, then nationality is a particular thing, and it's through these chattel terms that they have disenfranchised us, while we people under those terms are considered second-class citizens and get all of the, and stateless, and receive all of the abuses that stateless people and people that are second-class citizens receive. So again, it doesn't contradict any of those teachings. We're dealing with political status specifically, and this is something that was not addressed by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. This is something that was brought by the Prophet Noble Jew Ali specifically to end the chattel slavery that came after the physical bondage. And so I think that's where we have to understand words can mean many things.
What specifically wasn't addressed by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad?
What I'm saying is nationality and political status in this country, and changing that political status from second-class citizenship to full human being, no longer 3/5 of a human being, and addressing, returning and keep in mind when I say this, the chattel terms of Negro, black, and colored that were placed upon them to disenfranchise them from their bloodline. So we're dealing with the political, social, and economic chattel term that is used until this day to disenfranchise people from their actual bloodline on this planet, from their
again.
It doesn't take away.
How did the messenger not address that? You said the messenger didn't address that.
All right, say for example, in our 101s, in our 101 questions for Moorish Americans, it says, what is your nationality? Moorish American. All right. We are Americans. You have consanguinity and soli. Your bloodline, Moorish, and the soil that you're born on, American. We was Americans before the European even got here. This America didn't start with them. That's the United States. It's two different things. So being on the soil is you have birthrights to the land, and your bloodline, which is the word that come before it, lets you know what type of American you are. And so when we're referring to that, we're referring to political status.
And when was America established?
America?
The America that you're talking about, when you say Moorish American, you're saying
the landmass. God established that. When the landmass was created, brother.
So God named it America.
Did God create the earth? No. Now I'm not talking about the name America.
That's what I'm asking. That's what I'm asking.
America comes from our forefathers in ancient times, derived from the word Mer, which goes all the way back to Kemet. So that's another relation of the word Mer.
So approximately when was that? The land? Well, you in Hawaii. You live in your best life.
Mm-hmm.
For the rest of us here on the 48,
mm-hmm.
When was this called America?
I can tell you it was called America prior to the European coming here, when it was Asiatic groups of people living here. Now, as far as the exact date, I do not know that.
Not exact. I'm just asking approximate.
Mm-hmm. I do not know that.
Okay. All praise to Allah. I brother, I appreciate that answer.
I'm not gonna make up an answer.
Yeah. You know how many people will?
I know some people will.
Yeah, all praise.
But the government and the landmass is two different things. And we find the word in our language traced all the way back to Kemet, when it was actually placed upon it. The same Mer in America is where the where Moor comes from. That Moor, we speak in English, we say Moor, but the same Moor in America, the same Moor in Morocco, and the Mar in Mauritania are all our people's words. Some people even say it comes from the color of myrrh itself, is why the earth was called myrrh. And so you'll find a lot of land masses with myrrh in it. But however, I don't know that as a fact. I just want to drive home the point that when we're talking about the chattel terms, we're talking about something that was created and put on our records, as our prophet teach us, in 1774, and placed on our records in 1779. And during 1779 to 1865, chattel slavery, which has bearing on the political, social, and economic status of the people under that term. Now, whether it's used another way with endearment amongst our people and amongst our nation in other areas, then that's another thing. But when we deal with nationality and political, social, and economic status, the prophet said we need to give these terms back in relationship to that. And so that is something that one can process and look at for themselves.
Is Brother Ron still with us?
I'm here. I'm right here. I've been here the whole time, just doing the knowledge. So I think
have I been addressing the misnomer or the fallacy that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad didn't address nationality or nationhood? Am I answering that question?
I think you are.
When you first said it, I was shocked that anybody would even think that.
I think you are, but as far as nationality as it pertains to bloodline, landmass, and a flag, I think that's where the brother Cosmo L is trying to explain.
Well, again, bloodline, as the bloodline of the original lost found tribe of Shabazz was cut off during the slavery period. Otherwise, if it wasn't cut off, we would know where we came from, we would know who our people are, and our people would know who we are and where we were. Nobody knew where we were for 400 years. We were literally lost in fulfillment of the divine prophecy of both the Holy Quran and the Bible. We were taken to the Carib Isles first, and that's where we were broken. Some 64 years, which is almost over 2 generations of people, were cut off from everything. Language, names, everything. We had by the time they were finished with us in the Carib Isles, we had no idea who we were, where we came from, or who our ancestors were. And the brother's right. We're marrying people, and you see a lot of genetic defects and genetic disorders in a lot of our people, which is not normal, because we may be marrying very close relatives and not even know it. We were cut off from all this during the slavery period. Take it or let it alone. That's what God taught Messenger Elijah Muhammad. As far as the flag, I mean, how many flags do you need? Now, if you're looking for a name, we should name our country Morocco. We should name our country Egypt. We should name our country. Those names didn't exist prior to 6,000 years ago. None of them. Those names of those countries did not exist prior to 6,000 years ago, nor did those lines on the map exist. They were drawn by the Caucasian people.
Islam, I would just say all of what you said is true, but however, according to Moorish Science, we did not know who we were until Allah sent us a prophet. And Allah sent us a prophet by the name of Prophet Noble Juali, who returned to us the knowledge of ourselves, as I so shown where the origin of the word Negro, and when you talk about the good ship Jesus and the demi-Moor that was given to him to represent those who he was catching. And so it is through the knowledge of Prophet Noble Juali giving us this word Moor that a treasure trove of history is just laying there for anybody who wants to find it, to be able to identify what was the national name of the population known as Negro prior to 1779. Now, I'm not talking about the whole planet. The prophet came to us in North America, and he was teaching us who we were. Now, and again, this is verified through history, it's verified through language, and it's only an hour of study one can find that we are definitely indeed descendants of those people who were known as Moors. The people who wore these fezzes were Moors. It was the king. Fez is named after the Fez in Morocco. That's where it comes from. But Morocco, the Fez in Morocco was named after ancient Fezania, which is modern day Libya, which goes back to the Garamantes, which are the so-called Adamites, right? And I'm not talking about their Adamite, because when you look on the walls, you won't see them, you'll see us. And these are civilizations that go back for thousands of years. Prophet Noble Drew Ali taught us our flag is over 10,000 years old. So we're a particular people. It's not applicable for everybody. However, universally, we're able to come together as Muslims under Islam and bond together no matter what tribe or nation we come from. But we are a particular people, and we're Moorish Americans, descendants of the Moors.
All right.
So says our prophet. Islam.
Again, I was just this actually came off of a sidebar that myself and Brother Ron had during the last interview, and he shared with me this, and I was just shocked that people, wait, the messenger didn't address nationality. It was like listening to, when he said that, I was like, it was like a non sequitur. It didn't make sense to me when everything he writes all throughout his writings is talking about nation, us being a nation, us being the government, us being the originators of the planet, us giving everyone else civilization. Well, who else does that but a nation? Nations are not so much what people think they are in today's terms. Nation is also a synonym for race. America is a heterogeneous nation. It got all kind of races in it.
Multicultural.
That is not
national government. Islam.
That is a late development on the planet.
Let me ask you this. You said that the prophet taught nationality, where in our teachings it says, what is your nationality? Moorish American. Is there anything in your teachings where the prophet addresses not just nation, but brothers and sisters, your nationality is this?
I can't think of a place where he says in that quote, in the order of those words, your nationality is Islam. But again, I go back, it's right in the name. Nation of Islam. If you're a member of the Nation of Islam, what's your nationality? Nation of Islam. Islam. It's right in the name.
And all right, Islam.
He came and established us as a nation. That's what you said that God did.
Can you show me where the messenger says your nationality is Islam?
The Nation of Islam.
No, that's the nation. I'm talking about nationality.
Okay, brother. Nation and nationality are the same word.
Actually, one
it's a root of the same word. So if your nation is Islam, then the person who's a member of that nation, their nationality is Islam. If the nation is America, the person who's a resident of that nation is an American. If the nation is Egypt,
Islamian,
if the nation is Egypt, if the nation is Egypt, then a person who's a member of that nation, the nation of Egypt, the person who's a member of that nation is an Egyptian. If the nation is Islam, then the person who's a member, their nationality is Islam.
Is it Islam or Islamian? Because all the other ones you said had an IAN on the back.
Islamian. It's the same, brother. It's the same word. We're talking in English, which is not even a descriptive enough language to deal with this.
I'll give you that.
And that's why I say it's the same word. Nation and nationality are the same word.
All right.
The root of it is the same. You can't.
I with you on that, but I understand how you're drawing it from that. I see how you're drawing it from it.
But yes, I will fight tooth and nail with
it.
anybody who said, and not physical fight, but anybody who said the messenger didn't address nation, they obviously can't read. Nation of Islam. Everywhere throughout all these books, all it's talking about is the original nation. And that we are the lost members of that original Asiatic nation.
Brother, I think he's addressing nationality as it pertains to international law.
I'm not sure what that means, brother.
I'm just talking about nationality in general. I mean, I think, like I said, I understand what he's drawing, and in the beginning of this, when you're talking about divine law, all of that is on point. But when we're dealing with the political status, it's just like you said. If someone is from Egypt,
I'm not sure what the political status is or who is the author of the political status. All I know is that God came and declared us a nation. Once God declares us a nation, I don't care what anybody else says. It is officially trumped.
All right.
Whether they know it or not. Now, if they willingly submit to it, good for them. But if they don't, the messenger teaches us that our God has the power to destroy them and to put us back into our rightful place.
And you're entitled. That is personal belief. I'm not necessarily dealing with belief. I'm just dealing with the actual facts of political status, nationality, and birthright as it pertains to modern day nations right now, which is derived, as I've shown earlier, from the table of nations, which is in the Bible. You can go through and look in Genesis, the table of nations. In fact, the Moabites at one point were kicked out of the table of nations and came back in through the line of Ruth. And so this is so bloodline is very important to the Moorish Americans. And bloodline was very important to the ancients. And because they place honor and title on families, they place honor and titles on family names, it's just like you said, Egyptian from Egypt, but it's Egyptian, the nation, the word that of the nationality is going to be a derivative of the nation, but it's not going to be the name of the nation itself, right? So it's going to be a derivative, just like you said, Egypt, Egyptian, Iranian, Iranian. So if anything, a nation of Islam, it would be Islamian.
Okay, Islamic. It's the same word, brother. It's the same word. Islamian. I never heard that word before. Islam, Islamian, Islamic. It's the same word.
Praise Allah.
All right. I hope you guys got a lot out of this build right here.
I did.
If you didn't, if you didn't, rewind. Thank you, brothers, for coming up and building with us this evening on Nationality and Birthright. If you want to say anything, you got the floor.
Islam, I just want to say honors to you, brother Kevin Ali, Minister Kevin Ali. I appreciate your candor. I appreciate, the way that you dealt with me in this conversation, and honors to you, my brother.
Brother, I'm just honored to be amongst righteous brothers such as yourself who are willing to have to be able to disagree but not be disagreeable, to be able to understand, to be able to share information, share ideas, exchange ideas, say, you know what, I never looked at it that way. So this is nothing but brotherhood. This is what our messenger, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, did. He met with whoever was about putting our people back on top. He said, let us come together and let's figure out a way that we can do this. Let's work together for the benefit of our people. So I'm very thankful to yourself for coming, and I'm very thankful to Brother Ron for even inviting us and having us come out.
Indeed. Thank you for the chat, for coming out this evening. Appreciate y'all. And for those who deal with this, Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year.
Peace.
Islam. Salam alaikum.
Salam alaikum.